roughly half of the population believing that there is more irregular migration than regular, when the real figure is 4%.
There's just no pushback. I see a lot of Nigel Farage and his cronies just talking absolute...
baloney.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. And there's no pushback. You know, the statistics, you know, when they're talking about young girls and women being attacked, they're not talking about the scale of domestic violence there is in this country.
They're not. Farage doesn't believe that voters should be told if one of the candidates for his own party has been incarcerated for beating up an ex-girlfriend. He doesn't think that should be revealed to voters. No. So I don't quite understand what his concern in that area is. But you're right. I haven't heard anybody put that point to him. That very simple point.
It's making it. They're all making it sound as if the 4% is the 96%.
They are, aren't they? They are. Yeah, you're right. And I see it in the newspapers. I see it everywhere. And I also think you're being a bit light, and probably only because you haven't had time to swing him as well. Labour are buying into this narrative. Labour are kind of addressing these things as if they are legitimate concerns. I don't remember hearing any member of the cabinet, and they must have these conversations privately, come out and say in terms, why are people obsessing about 4% of an overall figure?
I think it's because Labour MPs and people on the left can't get a look in unless they start to talk about the 4% in a different way. They can't get a look in.
How? And I don't know that people outside the industry can answer this question, but getting a massive monstering on social media can be a tool of intimidation for politicians, I'm thinking now, not so much for other members of the media. So, the idea that if you were to actually start telling the truth about stuff, then by lunchtime on Elon Musk's platform, you would quite possibly be receiving death threats.
Yeah.
That might make people quiet.
And it comes down to the old thing saying, well, you can't out Farage.
It's not just him, mate. It's not just him anymore.
Oh, no, I know it's not, but he's the leader of the pack.
Yeah, and still, of course, not being held in any way responsible for the last disaster that he sold the country off the back of decades of lies and misinformation.
And we're being gaslit because we're simply being trained to see these people as evil. And see the immigration as the huge thing to talk about. So that's why it's being done, I think. But
can we get political on it? I mean, because there's two things going on. It's often the way that it works, and that could be the simple commercial imperative. You know, it works. We sell more papers when we put that stuff on the front page.
100%.
We do this, and I get that. But the change in tone since Labour got in intrigues me as well. And the idea that and they are, albeit that they're nibbling at the edges of inequality. Look at the reaction to the inheritance tax for farmers. Look at the reaction to the VAT on private schools. The mega wealthy are running a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit scared. So they've unleashed the dogs of hell on foreign-born people in this country because it detracts or it distracts or it delivers the things that they want delivered.
No, 100%. It is a lot to do with that. But I think more, for me, I always look at it as a foster carer. We do so much training over every year. And we have to reflect and we have to look at things differently. So I think mindset is a big part of this. And I think for me, it is about training. It's about training your mind to look at things a little bit differently. Because even on my feeds, on my social media channels and things like that, it's full of all of this hate.
Yeah.
And that has really increased over the past 6 to 12 months. A horrendous amount of hate.
Since Labour got in. I don't know why that would be. I mean, partly because of Musk buying Twitter and turning it... turning it upside down. Anyway, me too. But you still, some of it seeps through occasionally.
This is the point. It everywhere I'm looking. I'm seeing videos of these kind of people throwing bricks at the cameraman, and what you don't see is that the camera people are antagonising these people in the first place. So they're trying to get that clickbait. But It is
And,
huge.
of course, the people driving a lot of the hatred, as soon as any efforts are made to limit the hatred, start whining about freedom of speech being compromised.
Yes, but also, James, why are people, national companies, national media, why are they allowed to do it? Why are they allowed to... Is it such a fine line that they're actually not doing anything wrong? Because...
Well, no, because that's the point I tried to make at the outset of the show, and maybe it's worth reiterating, because I forget sometimes. This headline is accurate. Half of Britain's back ending immigration and deporting recent arrivals. So there's nothing you can regulate there. Someone who's reporting that, I could do a phone-in about it. Why do you want to end immigration and deport? I could do a whole hour on that without once mentioning that it is an opinion based on absolute nonsense. And you can't regulate that because it's true. The polling is the story. The polling delivers the news, for want of a better word, that half of Britain's back-ending immigration and deporting recent arrivals. If you don't want to ask why that is, you will not discover that it is based upon epic misinformation and misconception. So you can't really regulate. The BBC will do its best to tell the truth. The Times, I don't want to say to their credit because they wrote the headline, but they have to put the facts in the story a few paragraphs down. Other news organisations don't. So there's room for some, if you like, institutional fact-checking, but it's only gonna reach so far, mate.
Yeah, well, this is it. So where do we go from here? We have to do our own research, but it boils down to this. Not me personally, but do we really want to? I know certain family members of mine. They've been gaslit now. They're sending us messages to say this is happening and this is happening, and I'm now going to vote for a certain party that I never thought I would vote for.
And why? This is not a rhetorical question, but it might sound like one to you.
Go on.
Well, why is that so bad? Do you know what I mean? I know that people now realise voting for Brexit was a mistake, but we've got limitations on what governments can do. I don't mean Farage in particular. I just mean why is it so bad that so many people believe something that is so spectacularly untrue? Just remind me.
Why is it so bad?
Yeah.
It's because, for me anyway, you lose that person's identity when they start believing things that are untrue. They start to become so focused on mistruths and things that just are
and then
not
anything
real.
goes, and then you end up with measles
They're a different
outbreaks,
person.
and an anti-vax activist running the health service.
There we are. So ultimately, it starts at the gate. Once the gates are open, that person becomes someone completely different. And we know family members fell out during Brexit. Ultimately, hopefully, those fallouts are over now. But they're starting something else.
And how do you tell the difference, finally? This is maybe another phone-in. How do you tell the difference between... Because you know these people, you love them, they're good people, and they are a consequence of the diet that they have followed, or the diet that they have been fed. How do you tell the difference between them and the kind of... like the occasional messenger I will get, who obviously loves the racial tension that is building, the kind of people that really, really hate... I mean, racism is real. They just hate people who aren't like them. And they might make an exception for their GP, but some, of course, don't even do that. How do you tell the difference now when so many people have been gaslit between the gaslit and the gross?
You don't, unfortunately, James.
It's
You
really
cannot.
hard.
They are all now wearing the same hat. It just depends when they decide to take that hat off.
What I've also noticed in recent years is with the rise of TikTok, with the rise of social media, I think the general population are being presented by data much more than they were in the past, right? So, someone will, a kind of Farage TikToker will be flashing bar graphs at you, line graphs at you.
Oh,
these
really?
sorts of graphs.
Like fake statistics or heavily manipulated
statistics which are correct, but are presented in a way...
Like the headline, half of
them.
Britain's back-ending immigration and deporting recent arrivals. You see, you're right. Half of Britons agree with you.
Just putting that into perspective, I live in Glasgow, I live in the East End, and if you believe Farage and his pals, then there's at least 5 migrant hotels in Glasgow with about 500 fighting-age men, make it as sensational as possible. So therefore, me, this wee middle-aged white woman in the middle of Glasgow, I should be terrified, right?
Of course,
Actually,
yes.
walking out of Glasgow or walking out my house and being surrounded by these men.
Not as terrified as you should be in the West End of London, I read this week. Apparently the West End of London, where I work every single day.
Jewellery.
It's the killing fields,
Yes.
apparently. But anyway.
So if I'm just... And again, I'm very working class, as much as I live a lot better life now and I earn more money. But at the same time, as a normal person, if I go on Twitter, that's all I see. So therefore, I'm told on Twitter that that's the same in every town, in every city, and everywhere. So if I go outside as a normal working class person, that's what I see. So on the telly or on Twitter, on YouTube, on everything, pushed by these right-wing, you call them what you want, whether they're right-wing, they're fascist, whatever, they're pushing this narrative that my town is overrun. Putting this into perspective, I live in a street of around 200 houses. It's working class. Some are bought, some are rented. We've only got one non-white family in my whole street. So where are they?
Then you find a building that is housing asylum seekers, and it's proof that all the buildings are housing the asylum. That's the point, isn't it? You find one.
I can see.
Yeah. Do you know people who've swallowed the sort of online propaganda wholesale?
Yes,
okay. And can you reach them? Do you know how to reach them? Have you managed to reach them?
No. If I'm honest, dear friends, we have some lively discussions, but it's a bit of a no-no. So we just agree to disagree, James.
Well, there you go. I mean, all the analogies in the world aren't going to break through an agreement to disagree, are they? It's a really tricky one.
And I think sometimes, I think there's a difference, because what they said was, who decides what the facts are, and so I thought about that, and I thought, well, there may be a difference on how you translate the facts or how you display the facts, but choosing the fact is surely that's not that's...
Well, which fact do you publish? So someone at the Times decided not to go with the headline, public massively misinformed about nature of migration. They went instead with the headline, half of Britain's back-ending immigration and deporting recent arrivals, both of which are facts. I sense from the way that you're talking that it was a politician who is not particularly committed to objective facts.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name because I came in halfway through the show.
No, it's just as well. So what do we do about it? What lessons do you draw from your life in the context of reaching the people who don't necessarily want to be reached?
Well, to quote you, the footballification in some people is, I believe now it's irreversible since the B word. I've discovered since the B word. It was obviously there a very long time beforehand, but I think the B word really sort of shone a light on it.
And everything leads back to there, oddly. It's the same characters peddling the same sort of nonsenses with a fat slice of, at the very least, xenophobia, if not racism, with no accountability. So even as we learn support for leaving the European Union has absolutely plummeted, we don't really ever have any sense. I'm trying to think of something else so damaging to the national interest that the architects of would just be able to not just walk away scot-free, but continue on their paths of propaganda and misinformation. And how can we sit here getting cross with Auntie Doris or Uncle Keith when the people that flogged the country the entire lie have not been in any way sanctioned or cautioned at all?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when you bring family into it as well, the frustrating thing is, so I've always brought up my children with, to have critical thinking, right? I'm going to tell you this thing, and if it's my opinion, take it as an opinion, but go out and find, everything I say, look, you're young, right? So you look at me like I'm the be-all and end-all, right? So anything I say, I could literally feed anything to you. But this is what I'm actually telling them. I say, but this is my opinion on this thing, but you go out and discover whether that's your opinion or what other people's opinions are. But then when it comes to a member of your family having totally the opposite of that, who's not necessarily teaching them, but they're learning just through osmosis or by being near that person that, actually, it is okay to be racist, or it is okay to leave, the single market, or it is okay for me to never go and live in another country in Europe when I get old enough. It's really difficult to then have empathy, sympathy with the adult relation in your family.
Yeah, and then the shift to denial is incredible. I remember the first time I heard a big Brexit cheerleader say that we shouldn't be talking about it anymore. You sort of think, well, how blatant does the con have to be?